Hey everyone, I haven't done a video on contamination OCD in a very long time, and I thought it would be good to cover some points about it because a lot of information about contamination OCD really, I think, oversimplifies what the recovery journey involves, and I think it forgets some of the important details and the nuances that are also important to look at. So before we go on, please subscribe to our channel. Let us know what you think. If you are a contamination OCD sufferer like I was, you don't have to be stuck this way forever. You can really overcome this fear as well, and you can really get your life back. And the reason I also say that statement is because it's just one of those themes which quite literally can feel like has taken over our entire life in a very physical way because the perimeters of how this theme operates is in a very physical nature, right? So your physical movement, your physical spaces, your physical ability to do certain things, go to certain places, interact with certain people, how far you can do something is very minimized when you're chronically suffering with contamination OCD. I always like to say that contamination OCD, the source of contamination spreads like wildfire. Absolutely, because if you, let's say, if you're whatever it is that you're afraid of, and today you stop, you stop interacting with that object because you are afraid it will contaminate you. In 2 weeks, that contamination will feel like it's in a million different places. That's how fast it feels like it has spread. And then very soon, before you know it, you are avoiding so many different things. You're even people are avoiding certain locations as well where they think that the source of contamination will be over there, right? And contamination can come in so many different shapes and forms, right? So people are afraid of like chemical contamination, which is your like things like bleach, things like acid, things like pesticides, things like any kind of like chemical stuff that that's involved in there. Mercury, even thing, any kind of like liquid chemicals or whatnot. So all of that's involved in there. People can be afraid of just pure germs, right? And it's not even anything to do with them getting ill. Just that disgust element that comes with germs, people just don't want that. So they're just trying to stay extremely overly hygienic in a very compulsive way, of course. And then there's also like this like magical thinking element kind of as well, which comes with contamination OCD. Like if you associate, let's say, the color orange with something bad, you will not wear orange, right? If you associate it with a person or even like a disease, or if it's associated with, I don't know, the day that you broke up with someone, you'll avoid the color orange. I think I remember avoiding the color orange in some ways because um this because I also had a massive fear of throwing up, right? And that was even before I had contamination OCD. And this one time I think I had I got really bad food poisoning or something, and my phone's wallpaper, your old Nokia phones where you could also download wallpaper themes and color schemes and whatnot. So anyway, in those days I had like an orange color scheme to my phone and a wallpaper, and I had really bad food poisoning, and I like obviously was really badly throwing up. And somehow, I don't know, that color orange just got associated with throwing up somehow. And so there was a certain discomfort that came up with having like orange on my phone or what I wore and things like that. So, and then emotional contamination, mental contamination. I can go on and on, but I mean, what I'm trying to essentially highlight over here for everyone is, and the reason I'm saying this is because people are like, no, but I'm afraid of this. No, but my fear is about that. No, but my fear is about this. Like, whatever that fear is, I mean, it contamination OCD will show up like a million different forms. Probably a lot that I have not even mentioned right now in this video right now. But I think that there there's a lot about that that is not talked about, which because when you talk about contamination OCD recovery, a lot of it is just oversimplified into just stop washing your hands, or just stop cleaning, just stop sanitizing, just stop doing your cleaning rituals, just stop avoidance. And it is one of those themes where, yes, exposures are a big part of the recovery journey. A lot of the homework that you will have to do will involve a lot of exposures. That is very true. A big part of it is going to be cutting out those. I mean, avoidance and exposures then go hand in hand, right? Because if your exposure will be to touch something that you're avoiding, right? Apologies for the hair situation. It's just humid and my just hair goes completely in different directions these days. But so you cutting out that avoidance behavior essentially means you doing that exposure to go and touch that thing. So both things go hand in hand. So a big chunk of it will be that. But I think what really makes contamination OCD sufferers feel very isolated and hopeless is how they feel so stuck in their fear internally, and how this feels so stuck in their thinking internally. Because exposures, yes, help overcome that fear, but there's a lot of belief work that is really, really, really needed. I think if I did not really work on a lot of my life perspectives, it would have been really hard to overcome contamination OCD, or at least feel long term recovery from contamination OCD. I'll give you an example. Someone living with their family, or living even just like, let's say, with their wife, for example, right? A guy living with his wife, the guy has contamination OCD, and what he's doing is he is obviously avoiding like a ton of different things. But then not only is he avoiding those things, he's also making his wife avoid those things as well, because her touching certain things and then touching things after that, she is essentially spreading the contamination around him. So what he will do is he will put certain rules on her. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, right? And she'll be like, okay, sure. But then obviously, because she is not an OCD sufferer, she will end up making some sort of mistake, or she will end up not following that rule, or doing something that will be against our OCD rules. And then that guy will get super angry, and he will then try to double down on enforcing those rules. He will exert a lot. He will assign a lot of blame to his wife for making him feel triggered. He will blame his wife for upsetting him. He will blame his wife for just his life, or that his day getting ruined. He might not even speak to her for some time as well, because of being so upset. Then the wife will most likely also feel quite guilty, and then be like, okay, let me help you with the compulsions or whatever it is, right? I mean, that's a very common thing that you see with contamination OCD sufferers and the people that they live with. Um, then the guy will also, I mean, he will be very specific about where he goes out to as well. He will often try to enforce his choice in what restaurant they can go to, where they can sit, where they can eat out, all those things. And any person who doesn't comply with him will start, in his head, start being the enemy. And he will either try to fight with that person, or argue with that person, or even at times just simply avoid that person. Now, the beliefs that go into all of this is, for example, with his wife, will be um, people must not upset me, people must not trigger me, people must not do things that will upset me, right? My environment must be in my control, or my environment must not set me back. my life circumstances must not, um, I don't know, make me set back my mental health journey. There's such a big element of control, there's such a big must on how other people should and shouldn't behave, right? And by the way, let me tell you this much, it does not only then stick to contamination OCD, this will extend to regular life things as well. When you will feel like someone is not respecting your choice, or when someone is not following your polite suggestions, it will upset you, because then you will lash out and you will feel like they need to and must listen to you. And when things are feeling out of your control, in life in general as well, even outside of contamination itself, you're not going to like it, and your reaction to it will more likely than not be very bad, right? Um, then, in terms of going out, what beliefs can show up over there? My hangouts must be comfortable and happy. Me spending time with my friends must be comfortable and happy. Um, I must be mentally prepared for anything to come my way before I go somewhere. Or I must have I must have familiarity with the place that I'm going to, because I want to know exactly what, so I can predict what can happen, right? I must not go into places or go somewhere where there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, do you see how much of that internal perspective and that rigidity then comes into play with this, and how much then that affects the way we interact with other people and the environment? I mean, if you're a contamination OCD sufferer who has had very tense and conflicting kind of relationships with your family, and you have had arguments with them, or you have stopped kind of like getting along with them, and all those things, you're not the only contamination O3 sufferer who feels that way or who has a life like that, because there are a ton of people with contamination OCD out there whose life has come to a point where it has affected their relationships with their family. It has at times made friends take a lot of distance. It has ruptured a lot of relationships in people's lives. And I mean, I say this because I mean, I was in that position as well. I think that I've been very fortunate to not lose my at least not my close friendships. There were some friendships back in college that I lost because I stopped hanging out with them, because they made me feel emotionally and mentally contaminated. And those people probably don't have like a clue what was going on. They probably thought I became a jerk, and that's why that. And they literally think I became a jerk, and just started ghosting them, and just started to stop, like, not hang out with them at all. But I was fortunate enough to not have my close friendships get ruptured by this. But my close friendships, yes, there was a negative influence of my OCD and my triggers on my friendships, because I became very moody when it came to hanging out with people. In my mind, it was like a very specific way I wanted to hang out, that minimized triggers, that completely minimized any possibility of me feeling anxious, or me coming in contact with anything that triggered me or something like that. My idea of what a good hangout has to be was very specific. And I think that, like, if I speak to my friends, they probably won't even they probably won't look back on those years as us having like bad hangouts, because on paper, on the surface of it, to someone who's just observing it, they would probably see it as just a very good hangout, or it would be like a very standard nice hangout. But to me, internally, a lot of those hangouts felt almost like at times, just like a life or death situation. They felt like I was just on the edge of my life completely spiraling out. So there are a lot of beliefs that then, in that sense, keep us stuck, and they really make us feel super trapped in contamination, the feelings of contamination, and the fact that it has completely taken over our life, and we feel like there's absolutely no way out. And I think even when it comes to exposures too, I think there's so much over there that is not highlighted that much or given enough awareness to, I feel like, because the journey to do exposures and starting to take back your life can be very complicated as well, and just very, very confusing as well. Because it's like, if like right now I'm sitting in my room, right? In my room, for example, this table, I used to not be able to touch this table, right? But now I can touch this table. I just have a random envelope over here and some coasters, um, with animals on it, of course. So I couldn't touch this table. I couldn't like touch the handles of this and stuff like this, right? So but then when I started to do my exposures, I would start, touching things, and I'd be like, okay, I have to face this fear and whatnot. So I would do this table, and then I would do the other table right next to it as well. It's a pair. And then the problem would be that, oh wait, I've done this, so now I feel great and this is amazing, but I don't want this to be recontaminated, because I mean, why? And then, because when it would be recontaminated, then it would feel difficult to do that again, and it would be like, wait, do I have to redo this exposure, and we have to reconquer this fear? And then it would feel difficult all over again, and it would feel like, oh, I'm back to square one now, right? That's something that you have to build a lot of patience for, and that's something that you really have to kind of like, in some ways, put up with that frustration. It's a very frustrating thing, because it's like, because you've built so much like confidence, and you've like really pushed yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to do this, and when you do it, and then after some time it's back, it's like, I'm not doing this again. Like, it took so much out of me in the first place. But which that's why exactly, like, doing exposures consistently and repeating them is so important. Because what I would do is, I would do this exposure, but then for like a long time, for like a month, I wouldn't do any other exposures. And in that month, something else would happen that would like recontaminate these tables or whatever it was. And then I would feel like, oh, even the things that I did conquer are scary again. But when I started to do them more consistently is when it didn't bother me as much that something I had already kind of like, conquered, it was contaminated again, because it was easy for me to go back to it and touch it again. Because I was consistently in that mode of facing those fears and trying to touch other things and trying to, level up in that way of like, okay, I'm going to touch this, now I'm going to start touching some more difficult things, now this. And that's how like eventually like it felt like, okay, I have momentum over here and I can start doing things again. But like, it's also like, I mean, you once you start doing that, it's almost like your brain sometimes also starts giving you like new memories that you had completely forgotten as well. Because I would, again, let's say I would start like walking on my floor without any shoes on, right? Again, because I had a fear of like even the floor was contaminated, so I would always wear shoes to walk around or even stand. And it was like, okay, I'm walking around, I can do this, I can, do whatever. And then I would immediately have a random memory of like, no, wait, but this also happened, this person also walked on my floor, or this object also touched the floor that long ago. And it's like, oh shit, like, how could I have forgotten that? And suddenly a panic would rise, because it would be like, oh, how, I forgot that. And all these new memories come up, and it's like, oh, no, I can't do this exposure. And then it would go back to doing compulsions again, washing myself and cleansing myself and everything. And then I could not stop thinking about that new memory that popped up for like the next 2 months essentially. I would just obsess over it and try to be like, okay, what was that memory or that event connected to, what else it was connected to? was there somewhere else that that contamination spread as well? I need to know exactly how it went about. So along the exposure journey with contamination OCD, you are going to have new triggers and you are going to have re-triggers. I mean, I just came up with that, such as when I was talking about the table, right? Because it's triggered again because it's contaminated again. So there will be new triggers, there will be re-triggers, there will be old triggers coming back. Everything will be a mix of it, and it requires a lot of patience and it requires a lot of persistence and consistency to be able to get through this. But like I think these are the things that I've mentioned over here. Like these are some things that I think are just not talked about enough because it's oversimplified of like, oh, just don't wash yourself, oh, just stop doing compulsions. No, there's a lot of belief work and a lot of perspectives you have to look at, not just with the contamination itself, but in general your life as well. What are demands that you're putting on yourself, on other people? Is there control? Is there like you wanting things to go your way? Is it you being extremely upset about inconveniences in your life? Is there a fear that you won't be able to reach your life goals? Is there a fear you'll be depressed forever? Is there a fear that you're not going to, I don't know, you're going to be a failure? There's so many things that are attached to it that are constantly fueling that need to control the contamination itself. So you really have to broaden your view of what it is that you're looking for. And even with exposures, it's not just as straightforward as I'm going to start touching things and I'm just going to take back my life. Like I said, even with the exposure journey, there are going to be a lot of setbacks and a lot of surprise attacks that OCD will send your way. And it takes a little bit of that reconfiguration again and again to get back on track and to be able to tackle these fears. But again, I just wanted to do this overview of contamination OCD again because I think it's been a long time since I've done one. You let me know if there are specific questions, if there are specific fears around contamination that you want me to cover. Is there if is there any are there any questions around compulsions? Are there any questions around exposures? Again, let me know and I'd be happy to cover them as well. Take care. Bye.